liken this to, oh, there we got Colin, to putting together an IKEA table. We've had our bylaws out reading the instructions on how to conduct a board subcommittee. So we'll probably be reading these directions as we go here. We'll do our best to facilitate this appropriately. So being that this is a meeting of 6 board members, we did notice it to the public. We have one pseudo-public member here today. Mirta, I think, will be listening in to the discussion. I think that's the only one I see from the public. So I'll share my screen here. We have a little agenda for the day. That one. There we go. Hopefully you can all see this.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah.
Thank you. Ah, there we go.
My mouse
Thank
is,
you.
the challenge when you share in WebEx is you can't see what everybody else is seeing, so you hope it's working. Change my. So we have a little bit of administrative business to take care of here in the beginning. We'll try to do that as quickly as we can, so we can get to the discussion that most of you would like to have. We do need to confirm the, we're calling this the First and Last Mile Mobility Advisory Committee, and we need to confirm the members right now. The first order is determining a chair. So in reading our bylaws, this advisory committee can elect a chair, but for it to become formal, we're going to have to bring that back before the board of directors in November for the entire board, which is almost represented here, but for the entire board to confirm the chair. So, but we can nominate a chair today for this committee. So I'll open it to the committee members to determine if you'd like to select a chair now.
I would love to nominate Ben Baumfolk as chair of the FLMM committee.
Well,
I'll
thanks,
second that.
Tori. Somebody seconded. Okay. I mean, I'll accept the nomination.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think we've got that squared away. This does not require a vice chair. So if you're all comfortable, we can just move forward with a chair.
That seems fine. In the event of a no-show by the chair, what happens?
That is a good question. It might be
Search party.
Yeah, we got to go find Ben.
A pub crawl.
Yeah. There is, so staff will serve as, for a RFTA staff person can serve as a presiding officer. And we're going to be recommending that that's myself and David Pesnicek. So that's something I can ask Paul Tadoon to see what his advice is on if we need a vice chair or not.
Well,
or,
you know, why don't we appoint one just so we have a way forward? Just we could do that now. We could do that now. And if we have to boot him, we can.
okay.
Colin has his hand up.
Well, I was just going to suggest, sorry, I have to leave the meeting if I'm going to activate my video camera, so I figured I'd stay. I'm happy to fill in for Ben since we're both from Carbondale and we're both on the RFTA board, if that's helpful.
I think that works.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great. All right. So
Okay. So we've got
his alternate steps in. We got it.
Ben as chair and Colin as a vice chair.
Awesome.
All right, the next item is jurisdiction members. I think we just want to confirm that all 6 members that I believe everyone's on now. All 6 members would like to continue on this committee.
Yes.
Cam, you're gonna have to
Yes.
help me here because I'm sharing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm sharing at this point. I'm gonna stop sharing because I can't see anything.
Is everybody okay with this group? Do we all want to stay in? I'm a thumbs up, if that's what you need.
Okay, great. All right, the next
Can I just
item.
clarify? Can I just clarify in terms of a non-member, but a member of the public? Is that, so is, in terms of member, how do non-members participate in this conversation? Is it is it a public hearing? How will that happen?
I think we will likely have a public comment period if the public would
Okay.
like to comment. Otherwise, it will be like a board meeting where you're listening to the conversation.
Copy. Thank you. I just want clarity of what the scope of my participation and role can be as a member of the public. So thank you for clarifying.
So that'll be something that we'll ensure is on the agenda, is a time for public comment. And we'll provide that. We don't have that on our agenda right now, but I'll be sure to open that up here after we get through this administrative business.
Can I ask a question? I'm just wondering if, Mirta and WeCycle are such essential components. It's somehow different than just public comment. And I kind of think that if we have a meeting and we need a presentation, we can offer public comment, somebody 3 minutes to say their piece. But I think as a director of this essential component, we probably ought to have a liaison or a coordinator, an affiliate, something, just so we can give Mirta or WeCycle the floor. Is that possible? Just to make that clear, because I run into this all the time. Sometimes I want to bring in somebody when I'm chairing and I want them to participate, but that doesn't mean I want to open it up and offer equal time to virtually anybody else who walks in. If you understand my point.
Yeah, I think if, as the committee discusses this topic, if there's a presentation or information that you'd be looking for from either the bike share program or the micro mobility services, the RFTA staff will coordinate to provide for that presentation or information that's being requested.
Great, excellent. And the other piece of advice I give when people want to be part of that is that they certainly get with staff before they come in and sandbag us. Not that Mirta would do that, but it has happened with us that people come in and throw a hand grenade or kick the legs out of something without staff knowledge, and I try to avoid that unsuccessfully.
Okay, I think we've got our chairs, vice chairs, membership established. Quorum will be a simple majority. So we'll just need 4 members. Organization and committee. Oh, so we will, at the next board meeting as well, we'll have a resolution to formally establish this committee. That was something that was requested as well. So that'll just be an item we have on the agenda at the November meeting. So David Pesnicek and myself, we will serve as presiding officers from RFTA. And I think that covers the administrative discussion. Are there any questions from members of the board?
I have a board comment just to relate regarding first last mile, perhaps. But it's not a question regarding this administration. I think this looks good to me.
Okay. So the next item was to get into the committee discussion, and I'll let Ben lead that. The two items that we have identified are establishing a purpose statement. That's something that was requested. Purpose statement of this committee, and then just the committee approving that purpose statement. So we have a clear understanding of what this committee set out to accomplish. And then we'll also discuss just timelines in terms of what the committee's identifying to accomplish, just what time frame we'd be working towards. Are there short-term goals, and then maybe some long-term goals for the committee. But with that, I may suggest that we inject a public comment section now, or we could have it at the end of the discussion. Maybe leave that to Ben to see when you'd like to open that up for Mirta.
Yeah, I think now's good. And thanks for teeing that up. I mean, I didn't prepare any agenda. I didn't know I was going to be chair. So I think the
We're
idea
helping
of,
you out.
yeah, but I think that we'll have to continue doing this. I mean, I think the staff as presiding officer kind of helping with that, and I can do some formalities makes sense. So let's open it up to public comment, which looks like it's Mirta.
Great. Thank you, Ben. And thank you all for organizing, and facilitating this meeting and this conversation, which we all know is so critical to the complexity and essential service that RFTA provides in terms of moving and supporting and sustaining the viability of this valley. And I am very grateful to be able to be part of these conversations, and thank you for all of the leadership, investment, and forward thinking that you are doing collectively, recognizing that it takes time, sensitivity, and very strategic work in order to continue to sustain what you have built as a multimodal system throughout this valley. And we look forward to participating in the conversation and thinking creatively, strategically, and also with sustainability as our primary focus of long-term viability of both our partnership and within the services that we provide. So I look forward to participating when and as possible, and looking forward to seeing where you are, where you all lead. So thank you again. Was I under my 3 minutes?
That was great. Thanks, Mirta. Is there anybody else wishing to make a public comment? Don't see any. Greg, you had a general kind of board comment. We can open up to those as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation ongoing. I did want to ask Kurt, if you're not ready to talk, Kurt, you don't have to, but I did want to ask you if what your take was very quickly with the electric bus company guy who came, Green Power, who came to visit, because I do know they've got some small first last mile sort of transport vans that they're trying to repurpose. And I was thinking, I don't know if he talked to you about that, but it may not be part of this, but it's kind of an interesting thought that we might be able to electrify some of our first last mile sooner than we thought.
Yeah, I met with the gentleman that Greg connected me with, David Richardson. I believe he's a resident there in Aspen, and he's got a lot of various business ventures, and one of them is in the electric vehicle arena. And I can't remember the name of the company offhand, but they produce electric school buses. They make heavy duty transit buses. They make what we call body on chassis or cutaway, sort of the smaller vans that you'll see in Aspen on some of the routes. And then they do regular van conversions as well. So it was a great discussion. Unfortunately, on the vehicles that we're utilizing grant funds on, they hadn't really, I didn't really get a clear answer on whether they meet Buy America, which is something that we have to comply with when using grant funds, and especially when we're buying these $1 million+ vehicles. But for smaller vehicles, the vans and possibly even the body on chassis vehicles that are less expensive, there could be more opportunity to evaluate those vehicles utilizing local funds to purchase. So they do have vans that are similar to what's operating on the downtowners in Carbondale and Basalt, and that are all electric. So if that's of interest, I know those vehicles have been purchased by the individual communities, not by RFTA, but and that's information we can supply to the communities too if there's interest.
If I could just tag on, the company's called Green Power Motors, and it's greenpower.com. And they happen to have 2 of these smaller transit buses shuttle buses that they're some group in LA bought them and then lost their funding or something, and so they're putting them back on the market at a discount with the full warranties and all that. I don't know if you mentioned that. I don't know if they would be
He did.
possible, but I'm just thinking there may be a discounted opportunity, but we don't know if that's even a company we want to be associated with. I'm certainly not shilling for them, but I just wanted to make sure we knew about the opportunities. Thanks. I'll shut up on that now.
Thanks, Greg.
Ben, I did post the agenda there in the chat to kind of help you with the discussion.
Great, thanks. Any other general board comments before we dive into that agenda? Okay, well, let's dive in then. So purpose statement, I mean, I'd propose that we keep this pretty simple and get to the kind of meat of the discussion. But in my mind, and I think we can just open it up for discussion and then try to hone in on something. But in my mind, our purpose is something along the lines of update and clarify RFTA's long-term role in first and last mile mobility solutions, throughout the corridor or something like that. Any other suggestions, thoughts?
I'd add electric to that somewhere, or pedal powered.
Other thoughts? Why you joined? What you hope we discuss and accomplish? David, looks like you unmuted.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would just make sure we include, funding, long-term funding solution
Yeah.
explicitly with that.
Other thoughts?
No,
Yeah,
I
I was even simpler than that. This is Tori. I was simpler than that, and I don't know if my video is on or video is off. This
Goes back and
this
forth.
is kind of doing a little. It's kind of it on my screen. It flips on and off. So I don't know. Anyway, I was just going to even say exploring first and last mile opportunities. I don't know about defining RFTA's goal or RFTA's role and stuff, but I was just saying, exploring first and last mile opportunities. That's why I'm here. Is I'm really looking forward to kind of shaking the tree a little and just seeing what what are we trying to get? What are the connections we're trying to make happen? So anyway, I don't know about clarifying the role of RFTA or whatever, but for me, this is really just about exploring first and last mile opportunities for RFTA ridership.
Okay, thanks, Tori. Other thoughts?
If I could.
Yeah,
So
thanks, Ann.
I'm fairly new to the RFTA board, only having one meeting under my belt. But the reason that I was excited to engage in this conversation is to kind of build off of what Tori said. It's my understanding that we are trying to identify opportunities and also, transition it to more of the community focus rather than just RFTA focus, so that we can all kind of, provide the opportunity for what our individual communities need, because each one is different. What works in Basalt isn't going to work in Glenwood, et cetera. And so it sounds like it's like facilitating not just the role, but also the opportunities and, making sure that there's a sustainable model there that is going to work, throughout the time, not just like get it going for that first incubation year and then be like, well, that was fun, and then let it go.
Okay.
So I think
thanks.
that we need to add like a sustainability or a longevity kind of transition component into that.
Thanks, Aaron. Other thoughts? I mean, in my mind, I want to be cautious that we don't get into the weeds on different types of solutions and, this solution versus that solution. In my mind, this is about the fact that RFTA started a first last mile mobility fund that was about what Aaron was just referring to, right? It was just about like pilot projects getting us off the ground. And now that Basalt is first in coming to the end of that idea in the 3-year funding, and then others of us will be, following right behind. we're trying to figure out a way to, as Aaron said, make it sustainable. So in my mind, this really is about RFTA's role, and it's not about us exploring, you know, pedal powered or electric or any different solution, but I'm open to different ideas. I feel like this is all about like, what's RFTA's role in getting you from the park and ride in your community beyond that after the first and last mile mobility 3-year experiment? But what are others thinking? Like, what else, what am I missing there?
I agree, and I think the reason that's important, one of the reasons that's important, is our communities, or right now we're limited to the town limits the way these are set up, and there's a lot of, you know, RFTA ridership that's just outside and in other places in proximity that aren't able to use this right now that would be using it if it existed, which is why RFTA is, I think, in a better place to have a more active role than just the individual towns on their own in isolation.
So kind of getting into the fact that RFTA has a wider jurisdiction, David, you're saying, than each
Yeah.
municipality or county. I mean, Basalt's particularly a good case study there, right? With 2 counties and a municipality, and those lines are pretty arbitrary as far as where people might actually be coming and going.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
maybe this is an opportunity to ask Kurt how this committee can best help, and not to have you write our mission statement for us, but how can this committee help?
Yeah, and you know, the presentations that David has been providing over the last 3-4 months has really been trying to illustrate what the challenge is for RFTA in terms of the way the program's currently structured, and that if we're going to be taking on new O&M expenses that are ongoing, that first and last mile mobility fund wasn't really established to support that. It was more established for one-time capital projects that can be approved based on funding availability in a given year. But once we commit to O&M, that now is an obligation that we have to be able to continue year over year. And under the current grant program, it said 3 years, but we're all recognizing that that's probably not sufficient to allow these programs to be able to continue. So from RFTA's standpoint, I think the clarification of RFTA's role in FLMM is really what we're probably hoping to get out of this. We recognize that if RFTA's role is to be a part of FLMM, particularly for operating and maintenance type expenses, we're then going to the next part of the conversation is, well, where does that money come from? So I think the first step is what is RFTA's role? And then after that question's answered, how do we accomplish that?
Thanks, Kurt. Good question, Tori. Other thoughts on the purpose statement?
No, I think that's good. I think we can build off of that. Obviously, that defining RFTA's role or our input towards what we think RFTA's role could be is primary objective number 1. And then maybe there's a second or a third part to that, but it sounds like a good start.
Ben?
Yeah, Greg.
I agree with all of this. I'd like to make sure that we have, we're looking forward and thinking about things like marketing and promoting and getting the public to use transit. It seems to me we're in a, I see the first last mile solutions as an essential component of RFTA. It's hard for me to think about separating them right now as an integrated operation. And so that would probably include helping figure out or weigh in on whether outreach, public outreach, marketing, or, you know, I'm not even sure, but I want to keep that open. Innovation. And I think somebody mentioned that. Thanks.
So maybe what we're headed toward is just a little refinement on kind of the drafts. Thanks, Kim, for putting those in the chat, that our purpose is around defining RFTA's I feel like the word long-term needs to be in there. RFTA's long-term role in first and last mile mobility and specifically addressing capital funding, O&M, operation and maintenance funding that Kurt mentioned. I'm not sure what else. Those seem to be the key things. This is mostly a money question. Right? Like if we're trying to like get in here and get this done and bring something back to the board with a minimal number of meetings, I think the narrower our scope is, the better. Does that...
Another, that makes sense. Certainly that's the elephant in the room. And I'm wondering if we're going to go after federal funds or even state funds or philanthropy, if we can find it somewhere, doesn't it make sense to be part of the big transit solution for this entire region? And I guess we are, but I'd hate to see WeCycle have to go after a federal grant separately from the Basalt and the Carbondale and the Aspen downtowners. And I'm not sure that's how I should interpret it, but I was just thinking part of this is to really create a united force that can go after, and maybe even join other communities to go after certain types of vehicles or, solutions in our region, because, if we scale up the ask, we might actually be able to have a greater impact and get a better deal.
So with what Kim put in the chat last, if you're tracking those, which is helpful if you have the chat open, she's got defining RFTA's long-term role in first last mile mobility, specifically addressing funding. Anything we need to add or take away or edit to have that as our purpose statement for this committee?
One thing I might mention that I think was brought up at the last board meeting was in regards to evaluating what RFTA is currently doing with some of its services to see what opportunities or exist to maybe do things different that could help benefit some of the local mobility or first and last mile services. So the way I interpreted that was there are about 4 services that RFTA provides. That I guess there's the core trunk line service, but there were 4 things called out specifically in the RFTA formation IGA that was under maintenance of effort. These are the things that RFTA will continue to do. One of those was 3 of them came from Pickens County. So one was the Maroon Belt service. RFTA will continue to provide that service. One was a senior van in Aspen and Pickens County, and the other was Woody Creek, that we'd provide the Woody Creek service. So there were 3 things specifically called out in the formation IGA. The 4th was that we would continue to provide the Carbondale circulator as it was identified as part of the trunk line service serving the 82 corridor. So those 4 items were called out that said, hey, these are things that RFTA is going to continue to do in perpetuity until discussions happen that would tell RFTA to do something different. So as I understand it, being that this is an IGA, that IGA is open to be amended. So if those are things that could, and I particularly think of, the Carbondale circulator, because I know that's been a point of contention at times in Carbondale, that I don't think that is just set in stone, that it has to happen the way it currently happens. That I think that is open for discussion in terms of if the board would like to do something different. I think the board as a whole could have that discussion and make a change.
Thanks, Kurt. I mean, I see that as getting into I like the way that you set up the agenda with first we do our purpose statement, then we do goals. And I think one goal might be to update the whole board and build our understanding around the current status and the historic role of RFTA in these services. And that would be that kind of stuff. And then we'd have some other goals. Are we good with this though as a purpose statement, just to kind of keep us moving forward?
Sounds good.
I'm seeing thumbs up. Aaron, you okay with that? Kind of the last one that Kim put in the chat, defining RFTA's
Yep.
long-term role in first last mile mobility, specifically addressing funding.
Yes, I think
Okay.
that sounds.
Cool. So Kim, you captured that. Thanks. David, did you have something else there?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Then next, let's do talk about goals. I mean, I would suggest that our first goal is what Kurt was just referencing, like, build our understanding of the RFTA's historic role in first and last mile mobility. I think we can get there pretty quick and check that one off, but it might be a little primer at a meeting on the original IGA and that sort of thing. Does that, I mean, let's just pitch out what are some goals. Obviously, there's something around exploring funding options, there's a few different things here. But what do people have as goals for this group?
Increasing accessibility to RFTA or mass transit.
Thanks, Tori. Other thoughts? I think sustainability in the financial sense, but also in the environmental sense, but looking at sustainable solutions. I think that's where the first last mile mobility fund falls short, is that it's not sustainable.
Sustainable funding models, and of course, environmental sustainability as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that's where my comment fits in, is more in that like longevity and sustainability within each community.
Yeah, and I think, Aaron, to your point about each community's needs and solutions are different, I just think we need to have something in our goals about that. Like, that's kind of what I was getting at our last board meeting, that RFTA we're all really good at just taking off our local hats and looking at things from the RFTA perspective. But then I think in this particular instance, we got to localize this, and it might be that it's different based on a range of factors.
It would be nice if we could kind of, I don't know, develop some sort of a book of solutions, or some sort of a, kind of a guiding document that each community could implement in a way that works for them. I know that's been kind of our challenge down in Glenwood, because with the highway and, not having a lot of like off-road infrastructure for trails and stuff, we're trying to figure out how to implement it. And so if there's any way that it could be identified how other communities with their unique, kind of set of circumstances, if we could have some sort of a guiding document that just assists with that longevity and implementation, whether it's regional. I don't know if, like, say you wanted to expand from one community, kind of Basalt's divided into 2 locations, Carbondale has its own, and then as we all grow, there may be kind of some, bedroom communities that end up becoming more significant within. And so, over the decades, it'd be nice if we had something that had that kind of long vision for how this would work from a regional perspective, not just from a local perspective, just giving kind of a I don't know, like I said, like almost like a catalog of options.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, maybe there's a goal, and Kim, I assume you're tracking our discussion here and can feed us back some stuff. And David, I'll get you there. It seems like it's about kind of localized solutions, but within the regional context of the overall goal of increasing accessibility, regardless of jurisdictional boundaries, to like David's point earlier, and making it work for each locality. David, you want to build on where we are?
Yeah, I think reducing the jurisdictional boundary friction, I think that definitely needs to be in there. The other one is, I want to make sure we're explicit about, is reducing car trips. To, we want people to ride, but we also want to reduce those car trips in the park and ride lots, and get more people, get less cars out there, in addition to more ridership in general.
Okay, other thoughts on goals? I'm not sure exactly how we do this without getting into like, the next 20 minutes being wordsmithing these. I'm wondering if we're giving enough information, and Kim, if you're it looks like collecting this, and then maybe we have a draft that we review at the beginning of our next meeting, something like that kind of consolidates this.
Yeah, I can
Yes.
absolutely get
Oh.
some minutes together and out, and then there's a transcript recording taking place of this as well, so that'll help kind of gather any other details.
Okay, looks like Greg has a thought, and then Tori.
Yeah, I saw David and Aaron's hands are still up. I wasn't sure if that was, I just didn't want to jump in front of them. The thought was, sorry, I'm just gonna wait. I was thinking about them
Okay.
talking first. I'm gonna wait.
All right, and Tori, did you have something? And then I see Colin's hand.
No, I was just agreeing with your review at the next meeting.
Okay, Colin.
Yeah, I don't know if this is entirely something this committee can do. There's an element of information that would be really helpful. We kind of get information about how many riders we have on the buses. We have not yet gotten as much information about the downtowner services and how many people are using them. Merta's given us some information about WeCycle. It'd be great to get more. And then all the people who don't use transit, it would really be good to know how people are moving and re-looking at some of the work that Glenwood did with their phone data. I know that there's an effort that Clear is working on to gather some more information about how people are moving around in the region. I think that's really fundamental to what we're trying to do here. I don't know if this is just what this group does, but it could be the larger board. But I think it'll really inform some of our decision making and also help with the funding question.
Thank you. If I could jump in that's what I was going to say, but more articulately. I was just thinking that we should really understand the differences and the opportunities with each of the first last mile situations we have already, and identify future ones. And I hate the thought of having to be the one who brings up the need for a study, but maybe it's an internal thing. Maybe we've already got the information. We just need to collate it, but that would be so valuable. So I second what Colin's saying.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Colin. I mean, David Pesniak or Kurt, do you want to comment on that? Like, I feel like RFTA has a lot of data that could be consolidated and presented without, doing a big study, as Colin referenced, would be could slow us down a lot if we requested a new study.
Yeah, I think we can obviously gather our own data locally in terms of bike share data, microtransit data, but we can also probably look nationally to look at other communities that have similar systems and pull some data there to help with the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely have a few years of microtransit data from Basalt, at least, plus all that we cycle.
Yeah.
It's quite actually.
So it seems like that's all part of there's kind of a phase where we're going to build our understanding of RFTA's historic and current role in first last mile mobility. We've had some discussions about that, so it'd just be kind of hitting the high points. But I think going back as far as Kurt said is a good idea, going back to that initial founding IGA. And then looking at some data, kind of what's working, what's going on. I think that data would actually include our budgets as municipalities and member jurisdictions, and what we contribute to RFTA as a percent, because I think there's these different taxes that were passed at different times. And it seems like that comes up when the question is if one municipality or member wants more of whatever type of service, they can tax themselves more for that. So I think if staff can provide us with kind of a table of, where are we now? What are we contributing? How are we doing it? And then we can jump into those other goals of looking at some sustainable funding models that achieve those goals of, increasing access, accessibility, and that are sustainable long-term, and that really get away from focusing on first and last mile as each jurisdiction's own problem to solve. That seems like the key thing here. Any other thoughts on goals? Are we on the right track? If Kim brings us back a summary of those, and we can look at it in more detail at the next meeting. Okay. I'm just going to keep us moving forward. We've got a little less than 15 minutes left. And so on our agenda, we're talking short term and long term. So, end of year, like we need to have guidance for the following budget year, I guess, for 26. We don't want this committee to go on forever. So I guess what are we thinking as far as a timeline here? And I'd welcome any input from staff as well.
David, would
We
you like
are
to?
in October. We might be able to do one more meeting in a month, late November. I would suggest that we are not meeting in December, which would mean we would pick it back up in late January. I guess what I'm saying is I could see this committee in a 6 or 7 month period achieving our goals and looking at that as completion for the committee term. But yeah, I would suggest our next meeting in a month, and then let's take December off and pick back up in January.
That sounds about right to me. Other thoughts? I mean, it seems like, yeah, about a 6 or 7 month engagement, because our goal is to really dive into this in more depth than we have time to do at the general board meetings, and then bring something back. And ultimately, of course, the whole board will be engaged in this as well. But we want to bring something back that has enough support that, it's not just going to hit a wall at the first presentation. So thoughts on Tori's suggestion there, Greg?
I'm just trying to think. It's kind of funny because every time we make an estimate of how long something it'll take, you kind of want to do a 2x on it. But I agree, we ought to be able to report back sooner. But I'm just wondering, the door should be open if they send us back out again, and just be prepared for that.
Yeah.
So if I could interject to that point, that's what I was thinking, is that we probably would have something crafted, maybe like, in February, where we had something to present to the board and then get feedback and then go back. But I think with that input, I think we could refine it, because it seems like a pretty high level, not in the weeds kind of a thing.
Okay, David Pesniak, I see your hand up.
Hey, just to provide a little bit of context in terms of time frame here, and something that when we went to you all, or the full board, over the last few months, that we were focusing on was really trying to find a solution for the town of Basalt, and at least an interim solution going into the 2025 budget year and the FLMM grant cycle. So that was something that we were looking for. I think that we're still in need of some sort of direction for Basalt, since they are moving into year 4 now. So that grant cycle starts to open up the first part of the year. So if we can get some sort of direction there, I don't know if it'd be some interim direction for the town of Basalt while we continue the long-term conversation. But something to keep in mind is that we will need some sort of direction, probably no later than about February, I would say.
We're covered though for 2025 is my understanding.
You are. So this is looking at 2026. So
Okay.
yeah.
Which, I think I'm hoping, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but the timeline that we're talking about here tees up whatever happens in 26. If we need to do some kind of interim stopgap, then let's do that. But I'm hoping we move fast enough to we have this sorted. Get to the board, get into the budget cycle a year from now, all that. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. We need to have a fail safe of some sort.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that is just wanted to put that out there as a time frame that is looming for the Basalt in particular.
Okay.
And just for clarification for the rest of the members, Basalt's 3-year grant through this FLMM program was set to expire at the end of this year, which would have meant they wouldn't receive any more funding from RFTA in 2025. But knowing that this was a big question, that we needed feedback from the board, our recommendation was to continue that funding for 1 more year for Basalt, so that we can have this discussion and figure out what the direction is.
Okay, and you said that grant cycle opens up for 2026 very early in 2025, February? That seems really early.
I'm trying to be optimistic with timeframes. So if we can shoot for February, then maybe we can have something ready in time for Basalt to not miss deadlines, and we can keep our budget on track. That's really what I'm focusing on here.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem very optimistic for us to meet essentially 2 more times, maybe 3, one in November, one in January, and then maybe one in February, and have a fully formed recommendation. But maybe one of our meetings needs to be like an in-person, couple hour, 3 hour, like more of a work session where we can really get together and crank through a lot of this. Because I just have a feeling that each of these is going to slip by pretty quick. How do people feel about that? Like maybe even our November one, if we could get all the background
Great idea.
info and just say like, let's plow through it. Let's spend 3 hours on this in November or something and try to get somewhere.
That's what I was thinking. And I was going to ask too, is there like any kind of, like homework or anything that you need us to bring to that? Do I need to go to, I don't know, my engineering department or transportation department and get like any kind of data to kind of help move this conversation along? And we can do a lot of that through email prior to, that big meeting.
I mean, Kurt,
I think,
go ahead.
yeah, I think our next step is we'll synthesize the notes from this meeting, and that'll help us then establish what the agenda will be for our next discussion. I'm not sure if you're suggesting that next meeting in November is like a work session style. If that's the case, I think we would, as staff, just kind of need to synthesize these notes, kind of figure out what the agenda would look like for an extended work session. So it's hard for me to know what that homework might be at this point.
I think we're all willing to do that if we need to, but it sounds like I think RFTA staff is going to have most of the data and information that we need, and then we're all just familiar enough with our jurisdictions to be able to move forward. So, I mean, I'm just back to our goals. So short term and long term, it seems like it's all really lumped together. Our hope is that this is about a 6-month group that brings back some formal recommendations to the board that can move forward, and that we address some of the short term needs early 2025 to hit that deadline of the grant cycle opening, and that we're willing to spend some time to make that happen.
And to the grant cycle in 25, my understanding, David, is in February, that's just when we put out the notice of available funding to the various communities saying, hey, it's open. But I think the challenge is we also convey what the expectations of the grant program are. We aren't expecting grants to get submitted back to us until, is it May, June timeframe?
Okay.
Right. So a lot of this goes back to trying to be fair to Basalt to give them time to prepare. So if the direction is that funding is going to be reduced by, whatever percent, that we're not telling them that, say, in May, right at the same time that they need to be submitting a grant application, and then are scrambling to try to fill whatever gap might be there. So trying to give some time there to get that direction to Basalt, give people time to synthesize it, and determine a path forward in advance of that grant cycle and our budget cycle starting.
Okay. Okay. Well, with all that, with 5 minutes left, I mean, I think we've made it through most of our kind of agenda for today, which is really just setting the stage and getting started. I'm wondering if it might be worth our time to look at calendars for a minute. And if we're thinking about a bigger in-person work session, we can always follow up with a doodle poll, but sometimes it helps to get some general parameters while we're together. I like Tori's suggestion of let's get this done in November and skip December. I don't know, with Thanksgiving kind of holiday coming up just a few weeks out, how we'll land.
I look forward to the doodle poll. I'm out as of the 20th of November, and it's going to be busy until then.
Yeah.
First week of December to me doesn't seem like that. Like that might actually be a good time, early December. But
Yeah.
A doodle poll would really help.
Okay. I mean, I'm right where you are, Greg. I'm out the 20th of November for a solid week and a half. And so that first week in November looks better for me as well.
I am out the first week in November. Are we talking about doing this in person or virtual?
I think it'd be nice if we had like 1 3-hour in-person session.
I agree. I agree. So I'm challenged. I have to go take care of my dad a little bit in Arizona. So I'm going to be leaving. I'll be gone November 23rd through like December 4th.
Okay.
And then and I'm out of town until November 5th. So I have kind of a weird, I'm never normally this busy.
And it's sounding like late in the week, the first week of December, like the 5th or 6th might be. And again, we don't have to form it up 100%, but just to narrow down the doodle poll from 20 options to a couple might help.
Yeah.
Is that, Tori, we lost your face there, but I know you
Yeah,
said
I know. Like I said, I don't know what's up. It just keeps popping in. There it goes again. I don't know. What's interesting is, and mine is only tentative for the most part. I am tied to the desk here, but December 5, 6 is actually maybe my only 2 days or 3 days around that area that I would be gone. So I don't know about that. Let's just keep working around it.
Okay.
You know, if like everything, hey, if one of us can't make it, we got to carry on, right? Next man up. So let's we'll figure it out.
Okay. But Kim, if you're going to be coordinating this, it sounds like what we'll be shooting for. I mean, maybe we could have another virtual check-in if if we determine that the things will be ready. But I think to give staff some more time also to prepare kind of the background information and have one big meeting probably in that first week of December or early in the second week around the 9th or 10th. It sounds like those dates are going to be where we can get something done. We are right up against time here. Any other thoughts for the good of the group?
Two questions. I think David, you were talking about the grant cycle, and you were referring to the RAFTA FLMM grants, right?
Yes.
Question for you. Are there any available state grants, either through DOLA or what have you, for exactly this, for first and last mile?
There is one that's actually open right now, the Multimodal Options Fund through CDOT. That one, a jurisdiction does need to apply for it. So we can't apply for it to apply to, let's say, run microtransit in a jurisdiction if the contract's not directly with us. So say Basalt Connect, Basalt would need to apply for that grant. So that's actually, I think that's a very good opportunity that's open right now. And that works for not just microtransit, but it can work for a number of different options. And it's also a 5-year term. So you get funding for a few years out.
So if there was opportunity for any of our individual jurisdictions to apply for any state available funding, I think that we should try to coordinate that. And then my second question was, Kurt, does a RAFTA service map exist? A full service map?
It does. It doesn't, I don't think, include some of our seasonal things like Maroon Bells and music school or ski services, but our base service, we do have a map for all of that.
Could I, does it show bus stops as well?
I mean, we can make one that does that. I don't think the one that we have for the public shows all the stops. I think it shows some key stops.
I'm, for me, in the way that I think about this, I kind of, a graphic thinker, and it just helps me to see stuff. So for me, when we talk about first and last mile, I would really love if you could send a digital copy over to me. I'll get it printed out in a format that I can work with. But it would be so helpful if I could start identifying, the connections that don't exist, where we're trying to make them, happen, et cetera. That would really help me in my thinking around this issue.
I'd love
Yeah.
to see that too. A map of the known world with
Mhm.
the end of the world on the edges where we don't know, and a
Yeah,
dragon.
we can get that available for the group here.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Tori. Thanks, Greg. Anything else for the good of the group before we adjourn?
I just wanted to ask if you don't mind, Chair, to see if Mirta has a last thought on any of this. Just wanted to give you the chance as a participant.
That's fine.
Yeah, is that,
Yeah, that's fine. Go
thank
ahead,
you,
Mirta.
Greg and Chair. Thank you so much. Wonderful to hear this conversation. I'm really supportive of the direction you're going. And in closing comments, I just wanted to share with all of you our gratitude from over 11,000 recyclers this season who have officially completed over 250,000 rides since January. Thanks to your support and your investments, we have completed 250,000 rides, and together are pedaling towards the goals that you've discussed in terms of first last mile connectivity and long-term financial and environmental sustainability. So thank you, and look forward to continuing the momentum together.
All right. Thanks, Mirta. So I think next step, staff will follow up with a doodle poll focused on that first week of December, maybe the beginning of the second week of December, for a 3-hour in-person work session. At that work session, we'll dive into our goals. We'll start with a lot of data, background information, budgets, taxes, all that, look at the full picture, and then we'll start to move forward on what this could look like towards sustainability. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ben.
guys.
Everyone,
Thanks,
thanks
Kurt.
for all of your work. Bye.